When you're an archaeologist, you're looking at many different pieces of information, many of which seem very disconnected. You have bits and pieces, and you try to create an understanding of a past culture. And in competitiveness policy, what's so important is there's not one silver bullet. It's not just having the best tax policy or the regulatory environment or trade or the best technology or skilled work. It's how they all come together in an integrated system.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Kerrie Jordan. Welcome to our show where we hear from experts leading the manufacturing industry into the future. Today, I'm speaking with Deborah Wince-Smith, who is the president and CEO of the United States Council on Competitiveness and president of the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils. The Council on Competitiveness is a leadership organization that includes CEOs, university presidents, labor leaders, and directors of national laboratories. With over 20 years as a senior official in the U.S. government, Deborah was the first Senate-confirmed Assistant Secretary for Technology Policy at the Department of Commerce and Assistant Director for International Affairs in the Reagan White House. She's been an active member of various advisory boards and committees nationally and internationally. She's contributed to organizations like the University of California's National Laboratories Council, the Board of Governors of Argonne National Laboratory, the U.S. Naval Academy Foundation, and the Smithsonian National Board. Her corporate governance experience includes serving on the boards of NASDAQ, OMX, and various technology companies in sectors like medical lasers, cybersecurity, and biotherapeutics. In her current role, she serves on the National Commission on Innovation and Competitiveness Frontiers, the Japan Science, Technology, and Society Forum, and serves as vice chair of the American College of Greece Trustees. She holds a master's degree from King's College, Cambridge University, and has been honored with several honorary doctorates from prestigious institutions for her contributions to public service and the field of competitiveness. I am very much looking forward to this conversation. What an incredible opportunity to learn from such an accomplished leader. Deborah, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kerrie. Well, I'm delighted to be here with you, and I know we're going to have a very exciting conversation about the frontiers of advanced manufacturing and its impact on U.S. competitiveness and national security.
Absolutely. I'm so excited. And really, to get us started, I would love to learn more about you. I mean, your career path, it includes so many achievements. How has your journey led you to become the president and CEO of the Council on Competitiveness?
Well, I have to say, Kerrie, I've had an unconventional career path because I started my academic life as a Bronze Age archaeologist, studying the civilizations that flourished in the Mediterranean region, starting about 1500 years before Christ, and really changing the whole trajectory of knowledge creation, technological advancement, economic and military power. So that lens that I have on looking at ancient civilizations, but all the way up through the present and how they've been particular junctures in the human civilization that have propelled us forward is very relevant to shaping my career. Also, I have to say that as an archaeologist, this is very important for competitiveness policy. When you're an archaeologist, you're looking at many different pieces of information, many of which seem very disconnected. You have bits and pieces, and you try to create an understanding of a past culture. And in competitiveness policy, what's so important is there's not one silver bullet. It's not just having the best tax policy or the regulatory environment or trade or the best technology or skilled work. It's how they all come together in an integrated system. So, moving fast forward, I had the opportunity to start my career at the National Science Foundation, managing scientific and technological cooperation between the United States and the then East Bloc countries of Poland, Hungary, former Yugoslavia, Romania, and Czechoslovakia. And coming out of that, I was asked, because I worked in international science and technology management, to come into the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy under President Reagan, and then led the entire portfolio of international engagement between the United States and countries around the world at the highest level. And what occurred during that time, Kerrie, was the first focus. Even the word competitiveness really was a new concept And I had the great honor and opportunity to help forge a number of the very important executive orders that the president issued around technology commercialization, the creation of new models of collaboration, such as the engineering research centers and at the National Science Foundation, and very importantly, the focus then on the challenges of advanced manufacturing. So when we get into our discussion today, it's kind of a back to the future story in many ways. So, and then of course, as you have said, I moved on to be the first Assistant Secretary of Technology Policy in the Department of Commerce and played an important role in shaping many of the national investments and partnerships and the new models for collaboration that we are still very much bearing the benefits and fruits of today.
What an incredible background. And I feel like it's going to be hard to stay focused on our topic today because I want to ask about every one of those things. But I'll do my best to try to stay focused here. Just an incredible background and so fascinating. I'm very just interested in ancient history. And so I definitely want to go there. But on this show, we love to explore how there are, many different challenges that are impacting manufacturers. And I would love to just jump right into that. What do you see as the most pressing competitiveness issues that are facing the manufacturing industry today?
Well, I want to start by saying that, even the definition of manufacturing is relevant to the challenges today because it's manual and making something in the physical world. And yet today, and in recent years, but certainly today and going forward, we've seen, the merger of the digital and physical world. So manufacturing today is as much creating, virtual twins, modeling and simulation, using software, using the whole panoply of the digital infrastructure we have with making physical things, whether it's through additive manufacturing, et cetera. So that's a very interesting combination of the physical and virtual world that's shaping our future. I did want to share with you just one little story, taking us back a little bit when I said this is a back to the future story. Certainly in the late 80s, we were facing a situation in the United States where many of the industries that we had both created and led the world were being challenged by Japan. And much of that challenge was coming from quality, efficiency, cost structures. And at the same time, there was a perception in the United States that manufacturing was not the future for young people. So with the demise of vocational education, we also had a big talent gap. And I remember so well being in the White House one day when a very senior official from Japan came to see me. And the gentleman said, we're very worried about the D's of manufacturing. And I didn't know what they were. So I finally said, well, sir, what are you talking about? He said, manufacturing, it's not dirty, dumb, dangerous, and disappearing. He said, in Japan, young people don't want to go into manufacturing. And of course, they were manufacturing powerhouse. So today, fast forward, I would say that the manufacturing enterprise is smart, it's safe, it's sustainable, and it's surging. And so we've seen a tremendous transformation. The biggest challenges today are really threefold. One is, of course, all manufacturers around the world have to compete on cost and quality. Those are just table stakes, but they have to also compete on creating very sustainable and resilient products that can command a high premium in the marketplace. And so, and able to accomplish that, time is a very important metric here, but also having a highly skilled workforce and the ability to look at the entire chain of manufacturing, everything from ideation, the research, the design, the engineering, fabrication, all the way to the full life cycle in terms of sustainability. And so productivity and how you accomplish that is really the metric for success. And that's a big challenge, whether you're in the United States or Japan or China, around the world.
And talk about a transformation. I mean, as you said, it really has been so much growth, so much evolution that we've seen across the industry. Would love to understand from you, how did this happen? What are some strategies that you've seen some manufacturers put in place to really drive that transformation?
Well, one of the very important issues, of course, too, in the whole cost structure and competitiveness of manufacturing enterprises is the access and cost to energy. We can't do anything without energy, and we're in this great transformation, moving, from a 19th, 20th century world powered by fossil fuels into clean energy, and ultimately, into the world of fission, fusion, and inexhaustible energy. So the cost of energy and access is a huge issue. And so we're seeing many, many manufacturers focusing on that and getting competitive around manufacturing. Energy is one of their first priorities. And of course, basic industries have much higher costs of energy than perhaps others. But the United States has a big advantage because our costs of energy are 2 to 3 times lower than Germany and Japan. And our natural gas bonanza and tremendous riches have also enabled us to really propel the restart in the United States of some very advanced factories that hadn't been built here for years and years because of our energy fragility. So energy is a very, very important issue that all manufacturers are working on. And then I would add, another very critical issue that came to the surface, 100-fold during the COVID crisis is the fragility of supply chains and not having the resiliency of supply chains. As you know, Kerrie, one of the big challenges is in the critical materials, the rare earths that are going into so many products, including, of course, semiconductors. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the next generation semiconductor revolutions underway as well in the U.S. and globally.
Yes, yes. What role do you see technology playing here? I mean, are there technology gaps that you believe that the manufacturing industry should really be taking a look at and addressing?
Well, technology has always played a critical role in both developing the next generation of products and the services that wrap around them, but also in developing the whole continuum of how these products get into the marketplace. So, I mean, I'll give you a wonderful example. Again, a little bit history, but you think of an incredible company like Deere & Company, and we had the honor counsel for the former chairman and CEO of Deere to be our chairman for many years, Sam Allen. But Deere, that really commands the pinnacle of the market in agricultural equipment, lots of heavy manufacturing equipment, has operations all of it. Deere had autonomous tractors operating in Brazil years before there was any talk about autonomous vehicles for, cars and things. But Deere is a great example of how a technological innovation created that company. It was the self-scouring plow that was invented by a young immigrant from Hungary, John Deere. And that plow enabled us to open up the prairies to agriculture and gave us a huge competitive advantage to productivity. And on that, Deere was built. And today also, I will say that a Deere harvester has more a software code and more simulation capability and predictive ability to know, when you put the seed in the ground, what's happening with the water conditions, the weather, that, you could even imagine. So Deere's a fantastic example of all these things coming together to create a very, very competitive company with huge value. But it's also a leader in both the development and application of AI. So they're really at the forefront of all of these transformations, and technology is at the heart of this.
That's such a great example. Innovation is so important to an organization and their success and the industry as a whole. It takes a certain mindset, though. And, to even take on emerging technologies such as AI, as you mentioned, it takes a culture of innovation. How do you see companies like John Deere or others that are fostering this culture of innovation, and how can they do it effectively?
Well, Kerrie, you've raised a very important issue because obviously as companies grow and scale, they put in business processes, organizational structures, and their own rules, regulations, whatever you want to call them, that often create bureaucratic layers and things and can stifle innovation. And that is why you see many companies, Lockheed Martin being one, and others having their, we used to call this skunk works, having their innovation cells, as it were, and then how they embed that within the organization. But innovation, is obviously, we had a great definition for innovation we created some years ago at the U.S. Council, and I'll just share it with you. And we call it I to the fifth power. Innovation is the intersection of ideas, imagination, insight, invention, and impact. And it's the system. And so the ideation and the imagination and the insight so important, but you have to also invent and apply this to create the value. So how companies are doing that, I don't think there's one size fits all, but we know that without fostering this risk reward culture inside big enterprises, we run the risk of not being at the forefront of these transformations. So also education is very important. And I think certainly in the talent spectrum, as young people move into a enterprise, some are coming out of an entrepreneurial experience, others are going right into a manufacturing setting, having the ability take risks and have some failure and move on is very important, but also having a multidisciplinary mindset that comes from one, how they've learned. So much of our learning is still in stovepipes as opposed to integrating across the fields. And as we all know, these technological frontiers are at the intersection of the digital, the biotech, the nano, and the cognitive revolutions. And so much of the value is in this interstitial space between these disciplines. And you need to recognize that in how a company operates too, to be an innovator.
The way you speak of this is so inspiring. If you're out there listening and you want to make an impact, it sounds like manufacturing is such a great place to be, right? Because there is so much innovation that could potentially happen, and then what an impact it could make across the business and the industry and the community as a whole. When it comes to the ongoing digitization process within manufacturing, what role do you see emerging technologies like AI playing in driving efficiency and continuing on this process of innovation within the manufacturing sector?
Well, I see it twofold. Obviously, there are a lot of early applications of AI based on trained data and accessing the data. We've been saying for some years, data is king. We have a tsunami of data, but how, the AI algorithms are being trained and how they're being deployed in first generation systems is very important as they learn and continue to get smarter, merging man and machine. So this first generation of applications is very interesting. I think also with AI and training AI algorithms based on data, the cleansing of data is very important. And, ensuring that the data itself is not based on, both flaws, and that's a challenge, but also on cultural assumptions and cultural biases that can really skew how the applications are occurring. This is very true in the applications in medicine, looking for anomaly detection and things. It's obviously, we know, going to be very important in autonomy, self-driving cars, to see, if the algorithm says someone's crossing the street, a human, a dog, a woman, a child, you can only save one. Which one is it going to go? That's a huge cultural issue. And I don't know the answer to that. But also, we haven't really talked about this just a little bit, is we have, in order for AI, in my view, to really become mainstream, and it is a revolutionary set of capabilities, we do have to get the cyber resiliency in place. Because the cyber attacks, the ability in the cyber world to embed malicious code is just also accelerating. And then you link that to the, early development of new quantum platforms. If we don't have the cybersecurity capability, a lot of the AI and the digitization is going to be flawed. I mean, just think of putting in a chip that has a flawed security in it that will enable a semiconductor to do something that it's not supposed to do, or an NVIDIA chip. And again, that's why in this semiconductor revolution that's underway, it's the holy grail. The U.S. has to lead in this, as do our allies, because it's all dual-use technology with both an economic and national security implication. So a tremendous amount of the innovation in next generation semiconductors and their manufacturing in the United States is in the hardware. It's in the hardware. And we see that a lot of that manufacturing capability to, Asia, Korea, Japan. And so it's very, very exciting that with the CHIPS Plus Science Act, Kerrie, we're seeing, the public-private investments and the emergence of these next generation manufacturing clusters in the United States. I was just out in Phoenix where, that's one of the nodules, and Silicon Valley, New York, Ohio. But the cyber resiliency is absolutely critical if we're going to move forward in really deploying these new revolutionary capabilities like machine learning at scale.
Your points are so right on. And as a vendor within the technology space, our organization has taken on the responsibility of following development principles when it comes to responsible use of AI within our technologies. We speak with our customers and our partners, and we really encourage them to take an active role because we were in such a pivotal point of the development and the evolution of AI. And, we can really all make a difference. In your mind, whose responsibility is it to really drive cyber resilience?
Well, I think it's a responsibility of all of us. It's certainly, this is a little interesting example I'll share with you. Years ago, when I was at Assistant Secretary of Commerce, I was involved in the Malcolm Baldrige Quality Award. You're probably too young to even know about that, but that was an award that was set up, named after then Secretary of Commerce Malcolm Baldrige, to really drive quality into all aspects of manufacturing and industry in the United States in response to our weaknesses in that area. But a software company, I don't think, has ever won the Baldrige Award. All the principles of the Baldrige Award, which can be implemented, were never embraced in software. So to this day, we still accept patches. We still accept our updates. I've got one coming in today. That would be unheard of, in other products. And that now, of course, is very much a feature in the use of digitized systems in manufacturing. The software has to be continually updated things. So in terms of responsibility, it's clearly the developers of the software, but also the end users. And in the national security arena, the cost of doing this is so high because, look what's going on in the Middle East right now in the Red Sea. Can we really risk having one of our destroyers that's responsible for shooting down a Houthi drone have its core software system go wrong or attacked by a cyber malevolent player? So these are really, really serious issues. So it's everybody's business to focus on this, and you can't pass the buck on cyber resiliency. And another example I use, Verizon always does a great study every year on cyber hygiene, cyber practices. And at one of our meetings a few years ago, this is kind of a funny story, but the way it's not, one of their executives was saying, most cyber attacks really can also occur inside an enterprise. The way to test your colleagues and employees is get a little jump drive and put on it, 2024 compensation and promotions, and just leave it in, the restrooms. And you'd be surprised how many people could not resist going and putting it in their computer to see colleagues making and whether they're promoted or not. But that's human nature.
Yes.
That's human.
And the scary thing is, the bad actors know it and they can take advantage of that.
Yes.
So all of this stuff is changing so quickly. How on earth do manufacturers stay ahead of it all? What do you recommend in order to stay ahead of all the different trends, the changing technologies? What are some ways you've seen work?
Well, the partnerships are essential. There's no one enterprise today that can do everything in terms of the research and development. The day of the great centralized research organizations such as Bell Labs, that was our crown jewel, companies have to look outward and they have to partner, across the spectrum. They partner with small and medium-sized innovators. We see that very much in the pharmaceutical industry. And of course, we saw that with the COVID vaccine production from Pfizer and Moderna and stuff. So partnering is critical. And that's including with universities and with our national labs, and then among consortia as well. So that's something that I think is moved very much into the mainstream. And these public-private partnerships where the government contributes resources and things are difficult because you have to manage the intellectual property. You have to manage when innovations and things that are patentable come out, how those licenses are structured. But there's been a lot of innovation in that space as well. So I'm very, very optimistic that manufacturing companies, and defining this very broadly, are moving forward very, very well in the partnering with our universities, our research, our national labs among themselves. And that's something the United States has a great advantage on. Also then, collaborating with global partners, beyond the traditional joint ventures, and certainly with our close allies, we're seeing, this partnership in manufacturing a next generation nuclear submarine between the United States, the UK, and Australia. That's going to be a very interesting partnership at the forefront of advanced nuclear submarine technology. So partnering is absolutely critical. Also, of course, working in their communities where they're located and based. Now, many are all around the world, but I want to talk about what we refer in the U.S. Council to place-making innovation, and companies in the U.S. that, whether they're in Austin, Texas, or in Oklahoma, or in Boise, Idaho, like Micron, working with their community college, working with the workforce boards around those issues for training and developing the skilled workforce. And one of the companies that's doing this so beautifully is Snap-on. You know, Snap-on produces those tools, the blue chip tools that are used by virtually every physical.
You see them everywhere.
Airplane, whatever thing it is being made, Snap-on tools, and you see the Snap-on case or the top of the food chain. And they're, of course, a digital company too, because they now capture all the data and repair and maintenance digitally. But they're doing amazing things. And once, you get a job in Snap-on, their attrition is almost zero, a wonderful, wonderful environment. So working in communities to build the workforce of the future and ensuring that we have prosperous people throughout our country in these high-skilled, high-paying manufacturing jobs is something the U.S. Council on Competitiveness is very committed to. We're just launching our Competitiveness Conversations Across America, part of our National Commission on Innovation and Competitiveness Frontiers. And one of the first ones, Kerrie, will be in Tennessee, April 25th and 26th. We're going to look through the lens of mobility with the chancellors of Vanderbilt and UT, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, the director of Oak Ridge, a great steering committee of industry leaders, workforce boards, economic development, governor, et cetera. But it's to leapfrog into that next level of manufacturing. So advanced manufacturing, very much a platform for the future that's seen in a state like Tennessee.
Deborah, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with business leaders in manufacturing about the talent shortage, about how difficult it can be to find qualified talent. So to hear those kinds of initiatives underway, I'm sure so many people are going to be very glad to hear it. I certainly am. And thank you for all your work that you're doing to make that happen. You've already shared so much great advice and so many great recommendations. Is there anything else that you would pass on to manufacturing leaders listening in?
Yes, and that is about the culture of pride and the culture of work. I alluded early on to the terrible systemic mistake we made in the United States in the 60s and 70s to denigrate vocational education and to take that out of our secondary education. Bringing that back, even in primary school now, is very important so that young people not only see the dignity of working with their hands and making things, but have the confidence that they can participate in those types of things going forward. And so the dignity, I talk about the dignity of work because Nick Pinchuk, who's the CEO of Snap-on, I think it'd be great to interview him. He's amazing. He has said often, if you go to a big meeting in the country with leaders from whatever. How many of you want your children to work at a manufacturing plant? Nobody raises their hand. It's seen as the consolation prize. If you don't go to college, you don't, move into private equity or whatever it is, you're not a success. And we have to change that mindset. Mm-hmm. We really do. And so that's, to me, one of the big challenges. And other parts of the world, embrace engineering and embrace all this in a much more positive way than we do. And I'd like to end with that we need to restore in our country the pride and the dignity of work, the dignity of making things, and the dignity of contributing to both our economic future, but also our national security future as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. As we wrap up, for anyone who wants to learn more about you, to connect with you, or to learn more about the National Council on Competitiveness, where would you direct them?
Well, I hope that anyone who's listening and interested would be interested in joining our journey at the council. Our website is, www.compete.org. Our National Commission on Innovation and Competitiveness Frontiers is led by tremendous leaders. Our chairman is the CEO chairman of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan. And Joan Gable, great leader from our university members. We have a great leader from labor who is the CEO of the Electrical Workers of America. And then Tom Mason representing all the national laboratories from Los Alamos. So that commission is got a tremendous work plan, and we'd love to have those who are interested involved with us, particularly in that work around the clean energy, sustainability, but also how we develop and deploy at scale these exponential technologies that are shaping our future. You know, one of the very important defining characteristics of the U.S. Council on Competitiveness that has been part of our DNA since we were founded in 1986 at the height of the technology and trade competition between the U.S. and Japan is that we are a nonpartisan organization. We work with both political parties. We never have events without involving both leaders from Republicans as well as the Democrats, because we want our agenda to be the agenda of the nation. And that's very important as we move into what's already a very polarized presidential election. And so stay tuned. But in December of 2024, we will be releasing the next major report of the National Commission on Innovation and Competitiveness Frontiers. It's a roadmap to the new administration to work with the private sector and leaders to advance our competitiveness, productivity, standard of living, and national security.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation, for all the great work that you do. And to anyone who's listening in, please do take a look at the links that we provide so you can get involved as well.
Thank you, Kerrie. And I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. Well, that was Deborah Wince-Smith, the president and CEO of the United States Council on Competitiveness and president of the Global Federation of Competitiveness Councils. And to everyone listening in, thank you for being a part of the future of manufacturing.